Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Research Roundup. So this week we're going to be exploring why learning styles really are dead, why giving up your faith may be good for your mental health, and why research and evidence is still fighting a losing battle to myths about the brain and child development. You're listening to How to Change Your Life One Step at a Time with me, Katie Woodland. Tune in every week so that you can use tried and tested tips, tricks and hacks to start living the life you want right now. Learning styles, learning styles, learning styles. So I am so excited to be talking about this with you because this is genuinely one of the things that bugs me the most, especially as I know a few teachers and I just can't ever seem to get them to understand that what they've been taught during their PGCE is newfangled nonsense, and it really isn't supported by the evidence. Here is the cold, hard truth. Learning styles as a concept is rubbish. Now, despite countless studies which have proven this over the past few years, it still seems to be that one thing people are obsessed with. We all learn by watching, listening and doing. It is a fundamental part of human behaviour, and if you're interested, Google Bandura and social learning theory. If you're a teacher or a trainer who is still clutching to this idea, please understand that if your children or the people in your classroom are struggling to access your lessons, chances are they just don't find them interesting. Now, if we are internally motivated and are interested in a subject, we will consume it regardless of how it's presented to us. If we really aren't interested in the subject, we will not pay attention to it. It really is that simple. Now, in this study, they found that student grade performance was not correlated in any meaningful way with their dominant learning style or with any learning styles they scored highly on. Okay, now it seems that Husman and O'Loughlin are also quite frustrated with this perpetualised learning myth as they conclude with the following not so diplomatic statement. Instructors and students should not be promoting the concept of learning styles for studying and or for teaching interventions. Thus, the adage of I can't learn subject X because I am a visual learner should be put to rest once and for all. Now, if you're struggling with stress, depression, anxiety, and you're having difficulties with learning new things, please understand it has nothing to do with how the information is being presented. It's a key part of how those mental illnesses work. What you can do, however, to help yourself is limit the amount of time you're spending trying to consume new pieces of information, take lots of breaks, and before you learn something new, review what you learned before. Also, writing things out by hand and not using the computer helps increase the ease at which you retain information. Lastly, make sure you're getting enough sleep, eating a balanced diet and doing some regular exercise, because these three things really are fundamental in enabling your brain to function at full capacity. Now, I've never been religious. I have recently started exploring the idea of faith in my own life, but not aligned to any actual religion. So this is a topic which I am very interested in. So in this study, 600 people completed psychological questionnaires 6 times over a 3-year period. And what they found goes against what's commonly believed. So people who are religious usually believe that losing their faith will increase emotional distress. And those who are not religious believe that if somebody leaves their religion, then they will give them more opportunity to expand and become open-minded. Now, in fact, what they found is pretty much in line with the reality of life. So regardless of whether somebody has a religion or not, if you are emotionally vulnerable and you leave your religion, then there's an increased likelihood you'll struggle with depression and or anxiety. If, however, you are mentally resilient and leave your religion, then chances are you'll stay relatively healthy. So at least I now know if I choose to stop exploring faith as a concept in my own life, this as a standalone factor isn't going to automatically bring on a wave of depression or anxiety. But it is something to think about if you're considering leaving your religion and are also emotionally vulnerable. That is not to say you should stay within your religion to stave off any possibilities of depression or anxiety manifesting. Just make sure you have an exit strategy. So before you leave, explore other places you can go to be a part of society. So is there a local book club or a knit and chat or a walking group? Something that will stop you being cut off, and this should hopefully allow you to not only exit something you no longer feel aligns with who you are, but also enables you to stay connected with other people, and this together should help you maintain your current level of mental wellness. Finally, and if I'm honest, this one kind of links with the first one because it's about myths, but don't worry, I've said my piece about learning styles. Well, for now at least. So anyhow, on to this one. So there are 6 brain myths which just don't seem to go away, no matter how much research shows they're simply not true. The first, we only use 10% of our brains. Second, we are either left-brained or right-brained. Third, the brain is very well designed. 4, after a brain injury, people can forget themselves and others, but at the same time be completely normal in every single way. 5, that we have just 5 senses. And just so you know, I still believed this until about 20 minutes ago. And then number 6, our brain cells are joined together, forming a huge net of nerves. Now, the 5 sense one is something that we still teach in school. So discovering that we have known for a while this isn't technically true is quite annoying. But when you actually have a hunt around into the research behind these things, such as there being a team of blind cyclists in the USA who use echolocation to get around, then you end up going, oh, I kind of get it now. And yeah, limiting the senses to 5 very arbitrary categories does seem extremely simplistic in light of this. So there are 2 child development myths which are experiencing the same type of stubbornness in the face of the overwhelming research out there. 1, all boys have a Y chromosome and all girls do not. So again, this is something that I genuinely thought was true. And then number 2, if a woman is already pregnant, then they can't get pregnant again. Now, these 2, I definitely remember being taught at school, and unless you head into research in these areas, it's extremely likely that you, like me, are still trapped by many of these common myths. Now, especially with all the junk which is flying around the internet. So what can you do? For starters, always check out somebody's credentials if you're Googling something serious. And second, have a go at using Google Scholar to check for bits of research. But trust me, even then, you just can't be 100% sure what you're reading is the truth. Now, there are psychologists who fudge data to get their work published. Now, thankfully, this is happening less, but it still happens. Also, bear in mind, when you limit the parameters of your search by only reading things which agree with what you believe, then you'll only ever see one side of the argument, and you may just be looking at the wrong side. Now, in fact, things like this happen all the time when it comes to mental health diagnosis. So I remember way back when I was first starting out and well before having my own service, and I headed off to a school to do an autism diagnosis on a 7-year-old boy. Now, within 10 minutes, it was clear the boy just didn't have autism. The child had been referred to the service I was working for because he ticked every single box according to the teacher. So when I spoke to the teacher, she literally described a textbook case of autism. But then when I spent time with the child, these symptoms just weren't there, or if they were present, only because the child really didn't have a stable home and could have been eradicated with some support for the family. Now, anyway, I gave my report. The teacher got really upset and wanted him to be tested again by somebody else. So the reason she was convinced he had autism is because she spent every second of every minute of every day looking and recording any time he displayed behaviours which fall on the autistic spectrum. But at the same time, she disregarded every other behaviour he displayed. So for example, and this is a really classic one that used to get referred all the time, she was adamant this child didn't look at anybody in the eye ever. Now, when I observed him, he spoke to everybody by looking at them in the eye. And when I challenged her on this one single point, she said, and she genuinely argued, that I mustn't have been paying attention or that I hadn't been able to see clearly. So then I explained, well, okay, but he walked straight over to me, looked at me right in the eyes and asked who I was and what I was doing in the classroom. Now, when I said this to her, she again said that I must have been mistaken. So observation is something I was taught to do very, very well, and it's a key factor of helping people overcome mental illness. It's also one of the main reasons I won't do therapy over the phone. It has to be in person or on Skype, because I have to be able to see that person's face so that I can see how they're reacting to what we're doing. Now, thankfully, my supervisor at the time interjected and said, do you know what? She too had witnessed his ability to communicate effectively and also supported what I'd written. So this child did not have autism, and instead my supervisor advised the mum to attend the positive parenting classes. Now, I understand that was a bit of a long story, but my point is, when we go looking for something, we will find it. When you're struggling with any illness, physical or mental, and believe you know what's wrong, if you only ever look at that as a reason, then chances are you'll find countless evidence to back it up. Even health professionals who don't carry out a thorough investigation miss things and get things wrong. So my advice to you, always start out your search objectively and look at both sides of everything. So have a great weekend, and don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. I'll catch you here again next week.